Today's NDE comes to us from Chris, who had a surfing accident that he says resulted in him being able to see and travel beyond this earthly realm. Let's get into it. It's 10 years ago today that my life changed dramatically. I was surfing in Southern California on October 1st, 2012, when I was involved in an unfortunate accident. But more of that in a minute. There was much talk at that time about the world coming to an end. The Mayan calendar was indicating a big change was about to take place. Well, not much happened on the visible plane or on a global scale. Little did I know, while surfing on a sunny day at the beach, my life was indeed about to change for a lifetime. I had been a water person ever since I could walk. My dad was a swim coach, surfer, and all-around athlete. He was always taking my brothers and I to the beach. If we weren't surfing, we were diving, swimming, or doing something in the salt water. It was a way of life. I had a great respect for the power of the ocean. My career led me down a path of shooting photos of pro surfers from the vantage point of the water. So I had swam in some very big waves in Hawaii and other places. On more than one occasion, I thought perhaps my end had come during long hold-downs, but I seemed to have 9 lives. But on this day, it was a different story. It was a significant ocean day out there, with a pulsing swell hitting the coastline. I had a nervous feeling about going down to surf this day. Even though I had been in bigger waves, some sort of internal alarm was going off within my being, warning me of trouble. My stomach was talking to me, but I didn't listen. I went down to the beach and ended up meeting a friend to surf the big waves. I purposefully went out on a high tide when the waves would be a bit subdued by the deeper waters. At one point, as I was paddling back out to catch more waves, a guy came out of nowhere and accidentally hit me. The blow was square on my shoulder, hitting the thicker part of the muscle, so there was no bone injury. I just ignored the pain and didn't say anything. Then I turned towards shore to see my friend arriving on his bike, and I knew he had some food for me. I went in immediately to eat with him. After seeing the waves getting increasingly better and bigger, I was happy to go back out, though the risk was increasing. Just before I paddled out, I realized my cleaning person was about to show up at my house. I had completely forgotten. This was fate, or God's last beckoning to me. I felt the pull to leave the beach, but the waves were so big and I was hooked. I called my cleaning person and told her where the key was hidden outside my door. Mission accomplished, and I was back in the water as the waves increased in size and power. After catching a few waves, I was paddling back out when I saw a very large set of waves approaching the beach. I began to paddle very hard to make it back out past the break. We call it scratching in surf lingo. I scratched with all my might, but it wasn't good enough. This was a premier surf spot that many people surfed at. The crowd was immense on a big day, and people took risks at this place, not caring so much for the safety of others. It was all about the rush and the experience of the wave rider, and I was about to become a casualty in another's wave riding experience. I saw the same guy who had just hit me 30 minutes before. He was catching one of the biggest waves of the day and doing a fairly good job of riding it. But suddenly he made a poor decision and made a turn that rendered him out of control just as he was about to pass me. This was it. I could feel all those emotions building up in my being. It was the same nagging feeling I'd been having all morning long, but on steroids. And now it was about to manifest in a terrible way. Since I could feel this moment approaching, I did everything I could to avoid contact. I dove as deep as I could and began to duck and cover. My instincts told me to cover my face with my arms and hands, but it just wasn't quick enough. His surfboard hit me over and over again. I felt like it came to life, almost like it was an entity beating me up. I can't even say how many times it hit me in the turbulent waters, but it was a very unusual experience in the surfing world. The last time it hit me, I felt a blunt force blow to my left eye, just below the brow. I knew it wasn't good. I finally emerged from the depths to take a long-awaited breath. As I popped up above the surface, I saw the most beautiful sight. It was the gorgeous California coastline in all of its glory. An internal voice spoke inaudibly to me. It said, "It's so beautiful." That was the last time I would see such beauty in stereo vision. It was a brief moment of grace, of divine communion. The calm before the storm of trauma, swelling, and eventually 5 surgeries on my eye to save the vision. When I regained my composure, I asked the surfer who hit me, "Why did you do that?" I reminded him that it was the second time he hit me that morning. He was extremely apologetic, and he looked scared. I could tell by that look on his face that the injury was bad. Blood was streaming down my face. I just wanted to get into the beach. Surfers from every direction came to my aid. When someone is seriously injured, all the competing and smugness goes out the door. It was a bad injury, and everyone knew it. They swam me into the beach. My friend who had just fed me came to my aid with much concern and strength. He wouldn't leave my side for a whole week as I went through surgeries and big decisions to attempt to save my eye and the vision. It wasn't long before I was in a 4-wheel drive truck, buzzing across the deep sand with the lifeguards. An ambulance was waiting for me at the top of the hill. I ended up in the hospital and was prepped for an exploratory surgery that would attempt to find out the extent of the injury. My eye was losing pressure, and I was seeing strange colors and fluids floating in my field of view. The surgeons explained that it wasn't a good situation. Brain scans indicated that there was no trauma to the brain, and for that I was thankful. But they explained that the retina was an extension of the brain, and that the surgery was considered to be major surgery. After 6 hours of being under anesthesia in the operating room, the attending surgeon concluded the surgery without a definitive answer of what was happening in my eye. I was then taken to a premier group of eye surgeons in another city. A specialist would perform the surgery. Hopefully, it would save the eye and vision, if possible. This is when the mystical door was blown open to the other world. After that second surgery, I was recovering at home. My 2 daughters came to visit me since it was my birthday. My girlfriend also came. Everyone pitched in to cook a wonderful meal for me. It was about as good as a birthday celebration can get. I was just happy to be alive and out of pain. I didn't drink any wine or strong drink that night. I say this because something big was about to take place. I understand now why Daniel in the Bible said the same thing. He wasn't boasting of being a righteous man. He was clarifying that none of his visions or experiences were based on the results of alcohol or any mind-altering substances. After everyone left from my little birthday celebration, I went to bed with a smile on my face. Life was good, irrespective of the challenging events I had been experiencing. I fell into a deep sleep, and the most amazing thing happened. I separated from my body and saw the most wondrous and glorious sight. It was a cloud hovering in the ether of my room. But it wasn't just any cloud. I looked closely at it. It was gently and gracefully moving, almost like incense does when it rises to the sky. But it was pure white, and the most beautiful sight ever seen. It had small flashes of light in it, similar to when storm clouds are approaching with flashes of lightning. But there was no sound of thunder, and there was no fear in my heart. An internal voice told me that the cloud was a divine manifestation. Not God himself, but a representation. I had such a strong desire to be with God at that moment. I instinctively said to myself, I want that, I want God. And as I said it, I began to move towards the cloud. The split second I moved towards the cloud, it instantly surrounded and engulfed me. I felt a different feeling. I was a feeling of heaviness. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. The cloud was weighty, and it was every kind of love that existed. Friendship love, brotherly love, fatherly and motherly love, even romantic love, all kinds of love in one succinct presence. I couldn't stand on my feet anymore. I fell to my ethereal knees. I began to struggle at that point. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was almost like being held underwater. As my anxiety began to increase, I sensed a presence come to me. It felt like a brother. almost as if Jesus was there. Then a strong hand grabbed me by the arms to snap me out of my panic. It was as if Jesus came to me as comforting brother and a strong father. "Relax," the voice seemed to say without words. And I calmed down instantly. Then it happened. I fell into the deepest abyss of peace and rest. I had never experienced such a thing in all my life that I could recollect. I can't even begin to tell you how long I was in this state of rest. It was part trance, part deep bliss. Then the internal voice spoke again, and it roused me out of this state. The feeling I got was like a parent who wanted me to see something wonderful. If your parents took you on a trip to Niagara Falls when you were a kid, they might squeeze your hand and say, "Look." They would want you to see the grandeur of the falls. It was the same feeling, as if a parent was wanting to show me a joy and a wonder. Then I saw them. Two beings of light. The minute I looked at them, I was a bit startled. Not in a fearful or bad way. I just knew they didn't originate from Earth. They looked otherworldly. Their clothes seemed to be made of light. One looked more like a human than the other. The second one looked very different than anything I've ever seen. He had a triangular-shaped head. I was dumbfounded. Was I truly seeing this? They weren't just standing there either. They were dancing just like the American natives did when they danced around the fire, spinning in small circles as they made a big circular dance in the round. And it wasn't just any kind of dancing. It was joyful exuberance. They were dancing with pure joy. They didn't seem to notice that I was there below them, or know I was watching them. Then the internal parental voice seemed to emerge again. It said, "So, what do you think?" I felt like a little kid, so free to express myself and do anything that I wanted. At that moment, I just wanted to be silly. I wanted to let these angels or non-terrestrial beings know I was there. So I did it. I yelled out from my lowly position below them. I simply said, "Hey," but I said it in loud and drawn-out fashion. They seemed startled. They looked down at me, almost as if they didn't expect for me to be there, or to actually see them. My playful outburst was like a strong breeze that made them take flight. And fly they did. It was like two rockets took off, and both of them blasted up into the ether sphere. They weren't on any object of flight. They themselves were the craft. I awoke back in my bed at that very moment. I was out of breath and my heart was pounding very rapidly. I didn't seem to understand why my heart was racing. Though I had mystical experiences before, this one was the crown of all experiences. Later, an intuitive friend asked me, "Do you think you had an NDE?" I hadn't even considered that possibility. That night I was so happy to be alive, to be with loved ones on my birthday, and receive this cosmic gift. I was so glad to have one eye seeing things on Earth clearly. Was it possible that the breathing difficulty thrust me into the heavenly realm? It was becoming clear now. It had not only been an NDE, but it was the beginning of new things. From that day on, a door has remained opened, like a portal to a different realm. Once you travel to the heavenly or astral realm, future visits can be much more easily achieved. It's been 10 years since the traumatic injury which resulted in 5 challenging surgeries. Since then, I've left my body at night many times, traveling into all kinds of environments that were otherworldly. At times I was simply flying in what appeared to be outer space, yet much more colorful and vibrant. But other experiences have been so life-changing, it's difficult for me to explain those journeys with human language. One place that I went to was the most beautiful existence I've ever seen with ethereal eyes. The most beautiful scene on Earth would be a dim shadow in comparison to the glorious colors and landscapes in this place. Seeing with ethereal eyes is so much clearer and vibrant than what the physical eyes can possibly contain. Perhaps there's a connection between my accident and going blind in one eye. It's like I've gained this super cosmic view of other realms. They say when God shuts a door, He always opens a window somewhere. I believe that this window has allowed me to peer into the heavenly realms beyond my wildest dreams. I could never even imagine or create a mental image of the things that I have seen since that accident 10 years ago. It's left me with one simple truth. We are loved. We are not alone. We are not being judged by an angry God. Rather, we are being loved by God continually and for all eternity. In these other realms, even the elements love us. The grass, the trees, and even the rocks. Everything is an expression and manifestation of divine love. You can't run from it, and you can't hide. I suppose if it were possible to evade God's love, that is perhaps what the definition of hell would be. I don't think it's a literal place like I used to imagine. I believe it's a state of being. A willful blindness and refusal to see the truth before our very eyes. No pun intended. The truth of God's love being manifested everywhere and in everything. That's what heaven is. The biggest secret is this. It can start here and now. Not just with trips to the heavenly realms, but in daily life on earth. Can you see the divine face smiling in the face of a mother? Can you see the divine spirit in the face of a child? In all simplicity and innocence, perhaps the second coming of Christ is already taking place as we speak, but not as we first thought. Perhaps it's the infusion and realization of divine and Holy Spirit into this world. It's a comprehension and experience that brings divine essence to us in a tangible way. One thing is for certain. The words of Christ are true. The kingdom of heaven is already here and right now. It's very real. It's also inside each and every one of us. If we can just believe it. I believe it, and I hope you do too. Notes from Beyond Death. Thank you, Chris, for sending your experience into the channel. If you have your own near-death experience you would like to share, feel free to send it to beyondthislife22@gmail.com. I do ask that all submissions be at least 1,500 words, as anything shorter is not long enough to make a video out of and has to wait until I have other short NDEs to compile with them. Until next time, stay blessed.